on the 10th here of the Oregon City Library Board. Present we have Dan Millard, Claire Kellogg, Fred Haynes, D.A. Hildebrand, Ellen Sheridan, Maureen Cole, and Linda. Okay. Has everyone read the minutes? Are there any changes to the minutes?
Oh, you just have to say, are there any public comments?
Are there any public comments? Oh, yes.
Okay. Now
I
you
already skipped past that. So.
Rookie mistake.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Approval of the minutes. Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes?
I move to approve the minutes as submitted.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Minutes approved. Okay. What order are you going to follow in your?
I thought we just dive right into the
That's
presentation
fine.
of the
Sounds good to
building
me.
stuff, because that's obviously
Yeah.
what we're all waiting
That's
for.
what we're waiting for, I think.
We didn't approve the minutes for July yet because we didn't have a quorum in August.
Oh, thank you for remembering
Because I read
that.
it was in the minutes.
Thank you for remembering that. So could we,
Okay.
I know, isn't that sweet? Yeah.
Well, and Fred, I
Yeah.
also move to approve the July minutes as submitted.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, presentation.
Okay, are you guys ready?
Well, I'd like to introduce Haley
Yes.
Blanco.
Okay.
She works for
Hi.
Scott Edwards Architecture.
Mhm.
And Sid couldn't be here today. He was just here last night. Well, so was Haley. So was I. Presenting to the City Commission. And since some of you were not at the any presentation so far, Fred and Dan, you haven't seen this stuff. We really want to be sure that everybody's on the same page and on board and bring everybody completely up to speed with like the latest and greatest as of like last night, what's going on. So it's really fun to go through this presentation because we get like a bird's eye view and a front view and everything else because she can fly around it on her SketchUp program.
Right.
So it's very, very cool. So she's going to do all that stuff, and I'm going to throw in comments as appropriate.
Sounds good. So as Mo was saying, these are just ideas at this point, so they're not even like set in sand yet. We really want to get your feedback, and so I'll go through all of the options as well as give you feedback from the community, the McLaughlin neighborhood, to tell you what they've been kind of telling us. So to get started, we have a map of the Carnegie Library. Highlighted, you have the 3 elm trees that are on the site that we have sort of tried to design around because we know that you guys want to keep them. We've also thought about the various zones on the site, thinking about the open space back here, the tree canopy, the entry to the library, and of course the play area, which we know is very important to the community. Zoning in onto the building, we know that the building needs to be, well, if we do touch it, it needs to have some seismic upgrades. As well as knowing that this wall right here is a bearing wall. So if we were to keep this entrance and break down this wall, there's going to be a lot of issues there, a lot of adjustments we need to make.
What they discovered is that when they went back and looked at the 2000-2001 renovation, is that there were some seismic upgrades done at that time, but it only would meet about 50% of the seismic required now. So depending on what we decide to do, we'd have to, and it's pretty labor intensive to do seismic upgrades.
Yeah.
So
that's another thought that could adjust the budget or go into the budget. So looking at the Carnegie from afar, you see that it has a very strong base. It's designed within the American Renaissance with the Georgian Revival. It has a very nice strong cornice. You see that it comes down here to the lower level. We know that there's some basalt down there, which is why we think why it steps up near the back of the library. So just thinking about that and taking that into consideration into where we put this library and then the floor levels, trying to respect the image of the library existing as much as possible. So going into these options, we have our first option, which we have added a ramp to, and keep in mind that this ramp can be added to any of the options. This is just for visual purposes. If we do keep the Carnegie entrance as is, it will need to have ADA access, which means we'll have to add a ramp. So this ramp right here is at a low enough of a slope that we don't have to add a railing to it. And of course, we'll have to redo the stairs as well.
Can we ask questions as we go?
Yes,
Sure,
please.
yeah.
The actual doorway to this library is very narrow. Would we consider, or could we make adjustments? Because even now, it's very narrow.
Right.
The actual doorway.
Yeah, I know. I think that would, I mean, anything could be looked at, but I think that would really change the front entrance look a lot.
But I think
because
that's a real problem with this.
yeah, that's
model
one of the
because of
problems
that.
with keeping the existing front entrance as the main entrance or only entrance. Yeah,
As well as ADA access.
as well as yeah, that's huge.
Yeah, those doors could cause some problems.
Mhm.
So that's just an idea if we were to keep it as the existing entrance. With this iteration, we could also add an entrance over on 6th. Our options are really open at this point. We're just looking at the massing and where should we place it. So in this specific example, we've done a 2-story structure. So with each floor being about 7,500 square feet. And as we go to the 3D model,
The fun part.
hopefully I don't make you guys too dizzy. Let me know if I fly around too fast. So this is the view from 6th and John Adams. So just looking at the massing of it, how high it would go up. Again, we're not into architectural styles yet. This can obviously change, but just looking at the height in comparison to the Carnegie. So if we go to the other opposite corner, you can see how that would look coming up from 7th. And then in the front, this is kind of a closer up view looking at that ramping and stair system. So actually, so it would have to slope all the way down to this corner.
Well,
and
that's a
vice
good view
versa.
of it right there.
Yeah.
So you can see that if we change the front with the ramp and the stairs, while the stairs have a really nice presence and everything, the ramp basically hides the base that the Carnegie currently sits on. And unfortunately, that changes the proportions of the building as we know it. So it would really drastically change the look. You can see what she's doing up there now. That definitely changes the look.
Right. It brings that Carnegie a lot shorter almost
Yeah,
because
it
you
does.
don't
It
see
shortens
that
it.
base.
Yeah.
How do you make yours colored like that? And they're different colors on the
It's
screens.
just,
Really?
And mine's
Really?
black and white
yeah,
Oh, like, do you
And look at
have
his,
you don't have a
they're
blue
just,
sky?
monitors.
just the
Oh, I
think
monitor,
it's
how
just
the
the
color on the
monitor
monitor is
difference,
adjusted
yeah.
is all it is.
Look at
I think it
Dan.
looks greener or clear when you look
Dan.
over from the side as well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Dan's
and it's
looks
just
like
the
it's
angle
two-tone.
of the computer.
Yeah,
Oh, really?
Yep.
Yours is just black. Oh.
Yep.
You
It's
know?
the same.
Okay.
Yep.
I
I'm
bet yours
gonna
look better.
slowly fly up here.
Yeah.
So some comments that we've heard as we've shown this design to the public. We've had some comments saying that, you know, if you're up here on the 2nd story, you don't have that nice of a view looking out onto the roof of the Carnegie. And some say that it overpowers the Carnegie. I guess that's another thought, but
Well, is there on top of the Carnegie, is there equipment now, or will there be?
There's a pile of junk up there.
It's
Yes,
there
yes.
now.
Yeah.
But you don't see it from the ground?
No.
If you take a look, you can see from
You can see
7.
pieces, yeah.
If you just take a look, you can see
see
the
some
seismic
things.
bracing that they put up there
Oh,
in
okay.
2000 to hold up the chimney.
I've never looked. Do you know that?
It's a
I've
bunch
never.
of 2x6s. It's just a pile of junk up
So
there.
how much can you mask that sort of thing? How much would be
Well-
there, and how much, could you just put?
Well,
You
you're
could probably
decorative
replace the
barriers.
2x6s.
So I
thinking we
think
might.
Sid was saying that we would put newer equipment up here on the roof,
Yeah.
but it's still equipment and it's still and some people thought, well, but what about a green roof or anything? And in that case, you're still touching the Carnegie, and so you come into the historical factor and seismic, and So it's kind of a give and take. I mean, do we want to alter the Carnegie for that view, or do we want to have the two-story? People like the two-story because it doesn't take up as much space in the park. But again, it's sort of a give and take.
Pros and cons.
So if there aren't any questions,
No,
I'll-
one other comment on the two-story option
Yes.
is that this is going to add staffing permanently.
Oh, correct.
And then also what we lose is net square footage, because we'll have to devote additional square footage to elevators and to stairwells, probably at least 2 stairwells. So
Yeah.
we have, we lose net usable square footage in doing that option. And that'll be true of any of the two-story options.
Yeah.
So that's the two-story versus one-story argument that Mo will remind us about a lot, I think.
So this one has a total of how much square feet on the first one?
They all have 15,000
15,000.
So it's a 7,500
per floor.
per floor
Right.
footprint.
Okay,
Yeah.
I thought that some of the others said 14.5.
Well,
They're
they're all
all-
in that range.
Oh.
So the second two-story option is this idea of a curve. And again, like the style of it can change, but we were really trying to think about the placement of some of these trees and how do we work around that to try and save those trees. So we pulled this back a little bit further from the Carnegie and created this swoop with creating the entrance off of 6th. Again, we could ramp the front and have the entrance through the Carnegie as well. So to show you the 3D model of this one. So again, you have your second story, 2-story building. This is with the idea of it moving in from 6th. Let's go to the other view.
Can you see that there's not windows facing
Yeah.
the Carnegie roof?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So this is with all of the views out from 2 sides. People have liked this one a little bit, but we've heard a lot of feedback that they want it to be shifted more towards the 7th side to preserve this playground. Oh, and I should also note that we are working with a landscape architect to reinvent the playground. So in any of these options, the playground will still exist. We're not trying to get rid of that by any means.
Just move it.
Yeah, so even though you see the building more on this side, we've done that mostly because there aren't trees there, and the ground is more level there. But the playground we're still keeping. That is not going away by any means.
At one time, it was the Parks Department wasn't going to do playground, but now we're incorporating it into
Well,
cohesive.
what we decided to do was like talk more about it now, because this was, we have to address the issue. And last week we actually had a conference call with Charlie and Sid and Scott Archer, the director of Parks and Rec, Denise Kai, who's on our building committee, and she's the assistant director, and me, and Linda, so that we could just like really address the issues of park. Because, most libraries, when they build a library or an addition, they're just thinking about the library. But we are in a park, and so this really is a park and a library project. So we just thought, you know what, we need to address this right up front. And we already have the landscape architect on board. And he's Kurt Lango, who's done a lot of work here in Oregon City, which really benefits us. He's done several park master plans for Oregon City, so that works out great. And the Parks Department, I'm sure, could help us with like equipment and that kind of thing, and also with they've got the expertise as to like where you'd place thing and what the fall zones are and where to buy this stuff, all that. They could help us with that, but we just felt like we needed to pull that aspect into the project now. So that's what's going on.
Correct. Yeah, because that's going to affect placement of the building.
Yeah.
And so forth. So far, at least with this design, we were thinking of redoing the spray park and maybe like incorporating new elements all right up here in the front. But and also having that a connection to like the children's area. Maybe the children's area is up here, but so these are all just ideas that have been thrown around, and again, nothing is really solid at this point. So we're just looking for.
But we're definitely trying to get to solid very
Yes.
soon. Very, very soon.
Exactly. So those were it for the 2 stories. So now we're moving into the 1-story options. This 1-story option, we thought, let's just take up, let's just have this bar and see how much space it takes up. And as you can see, it does take up a good portion of the park. So we thought we would contrast that by making it as much of a green building and a reflection of the park as possible. So again, we've decided to place the entrance over here on 6th, but that can also change. It can change to anywhere else as well. Again, thinking this could all be reinvented as the play area. So if we go to this model, as you can see, we've put a lot of glazing on the facade, or at least on this front area, thinking that that can reflect the park, reflect all the trees that we have in there, and plant even new trees. And then along these more solid walls, maybe that can be a green wall of some sort to really help people feel like this isn't as big of a building, I guess. Or so here's the view from 7th. Again, all of these heights will continue so that it doesn't seem so intense, I guess.
And then you see that corner up there on 7th? Because of the level of the street and where the building would be, they just, added that little height addition there.
So people can't walk onto the roof.
Yeah, to distract people
Right.
from, prevent people from,
Right. And it has to come back so far into Jefferson. So in a lot of these options, we started adding a lot of light wells to bring light down into the library.
And that's one of the farther we go towards 7, the steeper that hill gets in the back. And so that forces us to, come up with alternative ways of getting light in there.
So it's only light wells on that north side, and those are windows then on the 6th Street side, is that right?
On the 6th Street over here?
Yeah, right down,
Yeah.
yeah, that's all open window then.
Yeah.
There.
Another idea while we're on Jefferson that they're trying to incorporate in almost all of their plans is to be able for somebody standing on Jefferson to kind of look through the addition to the back of the existing Carnegie so that you get that brick facade. And Sid last night was mentioning even like lighting that brick facade so that it just really jumps out at you at night.
Right.
And that could look really super cool. Because we really want to play up that existing wall
Right.
that becomes then an interior wall.
Well, let's go to the next option, unless somebody
Did this
had
one
a-
have a green roof also?
Yes.
From what I remember.
Yeah, the idea is that the roof would be green as well, and maybe there's cameras up there to videotape like the active life of nature, and that can
Nice.
be that can be projected into the library
Our new science
as
project.
a sort of as a learning
STEM.
project.
That's how we're going to address STEM. Yeah.
Could be done without the green roof, of
Yes.
course.
So let's move on to the next option because that kind of talks more about what Mo was talking about with the wall. This option has been a favorite by many people. We call this the wrap because we took that 1-story and we just sort of wrapped it around to try and take up less space or leave more of the park. So this one creates another entrance parallel to the Carnegie, and it's this idea of also bringing the park into the building. So we have a courtyard right here that reflects, again, out into the library. So let's go to the model.
The theme of indoor-outdoor was really important to people. And so that was, one of their ideas to try to keep that up. I mean, that's, again, none of these are set in stone. So, we could do that, we could do something else, but the indoor-outdoor theme is very important.
There was another comment too, a lot of times about how far it is to the Carnegie entrance. People don't like walking. This particular arrangement here provides an opportunity to have the arcade in from Sixth
Mhm.
to the entrance, so that
Right.
you've got a covered access way
Yep.
all the way
Right.
into the.
And again, with the slope, the slope's a lot better here, so we don't
Way better.
you don't have the issues with all the ramping. And
That's right.
Mhm.
And you could have your handicap parking
Right
right
out
there on
here.
Sixth, so
Yeah.
that's a lot easier.
Mhm.
I mean, we don't have any right now,
Right.
so. But Sixth or John Adams are gonna be where you could locate those, because Jefferson is like a double slope, and Seventh has
This
no
way
parking,
and that
so.
way.
If we decide on this one, takes up a lot of the park on Sixth Street, would there be the possibility of not having that courtyard, and then we get more space yet? The courtyard is,
The
I mean, I
courtyard-
like indoor, outdoor too, but it's, you know,
Right.
space taken out.
Yeah, I guess we could take that out and maybe cut out another corner.
Yeah, I mean, I think, Claire, that would be something to look at. Because you could maybe reduce, you know, a little bit of space, how far it comes out to the spray park, or you could pull it in just a little bit somewhere else, or whatever, you know.
And
Is Claire talking about, are you talking about library space or park space?
I actually was talking library space first of all, but the other is of concern
Oh,
too.
Yeah, okay.
this one can also have a new play area. We were thinking maybe right here, maybe another connection to the children's area. If,
Mhm.
you know, that's important. One thing that is nice about this scheme is that you have to walk past the Carnegie entrance to enter in here. So this is still speaking that this is like enter into the library in this direction. So it's kind of nice to have it passing by, so to speak. Go to the model. What Mo was referring to was this idea that we would take this dimension of the library and just push it all the way back. And then on the back end here, that's fully glazed so that at night it lights up and you can see the back of the Carnegie, because that would be kept intact. That to us, we would want that to be the interior wall of the new library.
So you wouldn't be able to have bookshelves and things visually through there then?
Well,
This,
I mean,
it goes down. The floor level down here is so far down.
Is
that
it? Oh, okay.
yeah, so
Yeah,
yeah, you
it would-
still could. It would
you could
be
still
okay.
see, because
over
at this
over the
point, I
top.
think you're
That's,
like,
you're looking up, higher from
right.
the other side.
It's a 12 foot. I think it's 12 feet from here to the bottom. So before I get too carried away and like swinging around for you guys, let's go back here and show you the view. So that's what it looked like on 6th and John Adams, and then 7th. So we liked this idea of swooping it the other way so that it doesn't take over the Carnegie as you're coming up 7th, because we know that's a big street and there's a lot of traffic there, and people are used to driving by and seeing the park and seeing the Carnegie, and we didn't want to overpower it by adding too much building to the park area. There's a close-up of that new entrance too. But again, the entrance doesn't necessarily have to go through there, but that was one idea that we had thought.
Also, looking at the Carnegie, how the regular old entrance is so obvious an entrance,
Yeah.
but then this doesn't take too much looking to see the other entrance.
Claire, that's
That
one of the
was
things
one of
I
the-
like. Yeah.
That was an
Yeah.
important issue.
It is very important.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the thought was that if whichever plan we choose, if there is a different entrance, that this would still be kept looking as is. So we'd probably redo the stairs so it's easier to get up the stairs because they're a little steep right now. But they would be that entrance would be kept intact as is. And this library could turn into like a special reading room or a meeting area. It's something that serves a special purpose. Because if we did keep the entrance through here and tear out this wall, this would just turn into a lot of circulation space. So, and we'd have to do a lot of adjustments, which, would in certain people's opinions, hurt the Carnegie.
Could I ask you a question real quick?
Yes, please do.
If this was used as a a secondary entrance or exit, it was actually an opening, would you still have to make it handicap accessible?
ADA?
So that would, I mean, even if it was for very light, like special event entrance? If
I think you actually could keep it open all the time.
it's open all the time.
And
but would
not
there still
have to
be
have
a-
ADA as long as there's another ADA.
You wouldn't need to as long as there's another.
Main entrance is ADA.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
Okay.
think that's right, too.
Well, you couldn't I think you were thinking closing it off, using it just for special events.
Well, I was wondering
with
if
the
that
library
would ever
closed,
be
but
an option. Is
but
that
you
I
think
couldn't
it
then.
would.
At that point, you would have to go to ADA.
so then
Yeah.
it would need to.
You'd have to have the main entrance somehow.
Yeah,
have
you have to have
access.
another main entrance.
Yeah.
Yeah, with ADA. If you have the other main entrance with ADA, you can either leave this open full-time as an alternate entrance, or you could close it off. You could then do whatever you want with as far as the timing
Okay.
thing.
Okay.
So we heard a lot of good feedback from this option,
option.
and from the wrap option. But some people wanted us to flip it because they were still, there's still a lot of concern about the playground. So this next option is that reverse option. Of course, we're taking out a little more trees, but one thing about this that people like is that you could enter from 6 still. So this would be, handicap accessible. There's still a nice playground here. But so we were thinking that the entrance would be from 7th, but it could be from either end, which I think Mo really likes the idea from 6th.
Yeah, I really, I think that I see why they put the entrance there, and it creates that symmetrical, the addition that pokes out with the entrance in between. That's like shaped very similarly and masked very much the size of the Carnegie, so it creates a balance there. But I think it's like even farther away from parking than the current entrance is. And I think the part of the reason we hear about parking as a problem so much is just that people have to go so dang far away from where they park that it seems like there's no parking. I mean, does that make sense? It's like, I think it really complicates the issue of parking. So I suggested that what we would do if we went this way would be perhaps to turn that existing entrance into a courtyard area instead, and then put the entrance over on the 6th Street side. Yeah.
And then you can still have your handicap
You could,
parking.
and you still have your
and
playground too.
still have the playground.
Mhm. Yeah.
People that are in Jefferson don't walk somewhere either.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess a couple of downsides that we've heard to doing this option is that we have to dig a lot into this side of the hill.
Yeah.
So, and we still haven't gotten that geotech report yet back, but that could be an issue. We also have to have a thicker retaining or a better retaining wall.
I hear they're expensive.
Yeah, and then also just the view of coming up here and you see this building really kind of overpowering the Carnegie. So again, there's some give and take. It's a little bit of a battle.
Yeah, the original option 4 is kind of nice because when you do have that view of the Carnegie, and it's a little bit more on its own,
Right.
more intact.
Again, that same idea though, bringing this wall all the way back so you can see the back of the Carnegie.
Love that.
And then our last option is we took all of these ideas and we said, okay, we're going to do something different, very different, and we just put the entire library underground. And then we thought we could, play with the features up here to bring in light down into the basement. And this idea would be that you would enter in through here. Again, you could enter in through the Carnegie, and that the connection would also be underground. Sid had noted that somebody had a great idea of coming in through the Carnegie and going straight down in here to the underground library. So that was another idea, I guess. So as you can see here, like we would raise up certain elements to bring light down into the library. So people liked this idea a lot because it kept the park intact. You could still have your playground, which we would, of course, reinvent, and still have the Carnegie just as is, yet have the space. So we have a geotech report coming, which will tell us whether or not this is actually feasible. And so until that happens, we haven't thrown it off the table yet, but we have a lot of people that do really like this option.
More than likely, though, it's not technically feasible because of not just rock, but also water. So when we've been asking people for opinions, we've been saying, if you like this one, choose another option also. What's your second choice? Because it's, you know, just as likely as not that this is not technically feasible, or it would just be too expensive, or, you know,
Yeah.
there's, yeah.
Depending where the water table
Does this
is.
create two levels, though? I mean, from a staffing standpoint, you've got the grade of inside the Carnegie, but obviously that subterranean library is on a different grade. So you have the issue of elevators. I mean, you have some of the two-story
Right.
issues going on.
Right.
Staffing and elevators.
Right.
And
Well,
that's-
staffing is probably more the issue with this because you still have, you have the two levels in the Carnegie, and the space that's already given up for stairs and elevators is already done in that building, right?
Okay.
But then you've got this other level that you also have to staff, and depending on how open it is and all that stuff, like, you know, so would it join at where the bathrooms are, and then there would be this space over there that would be open or not open, or where the children's room is? I mean, what would be the flow of that? That would be very interesting to figure out, you know?
What's the electricity usage?
Yeah, electricity, but it might save on heat
Definitely.
and cooling.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So I mean, it has its pros and cons. It does save a lot of the park, and even where they have that glass entrance over there, probably could go in a different spot. I mean, you know.
Exactly.
Can you imagine the political pushback if a problem developed 5 years from now?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. We all of us could be run out of town if it starts leaking.
You mean like the leaks we have in the library currently?
Yeah, it does. Oh, that. Yep. That's, you know.
All the same. Leaks
That's
are
from
not good in a
above.
library.
No, leaks are not good in libraries. We just discovered a whole shelf of books like 2 weeks ago that were moldy from a leak that we had upstairs from a window area that went all the way downstairs. And I don't think I knew that it was
Sprinkler pipe at the
a 2-story leak. Yeah.
was expensive.
Yeah. So we'll get that fixed. But leaks are bad.
If you had this one, where would the ramp be?
Well, so all of it would be in here.
Yeah.
You would have an elevator going down into here, because this would turn into the main entrance.
So the ramp would have to be in there somewhere.
Yeah.
Because you'd have to have not just an elevator, but a ramp as well.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So that would all have to be configured into here. So we've presented this all of these ideas to the community, to McLaughlin neighborhood, and last night to the city commissioners
Staff
and staff, and
part of the library board.
part of the library. Yes, I'm part of the library board. Everyone seems to love the wrap reverse. And we have a lot of people that like the underground, but again, like we were saying, that's may not be feasible. So that was actually, the underground was actually tied with the curve, ironically. And, but the wrap reverse had won by like 35% vote. 15% of the people liked the 2-story, the first option.
What percent?
15. Last night, the city commissioners had kind of narrowed it down for us, and they had suggested that we pursue the 1-story, or sorry, the 2-story option, the first one, and the 4-story, or option 4, the wrap, whether that be the wrap or the wrap reverse. So that's kind of the direction that we're moving into, exploring more of the option 4 of the wrap and the 2-story.
So what they wanted to see on option 1, And what they liked about it, so what they wanted to see on option one was something that would show an entrance on the 6th Street side, over there. Just like the curved 2-story does. Maybe not out so far or anything, but something that would have an entrance on that side. And then would get away from the ramp on the front.
Yeah.
Right.
And the benefits of this are obvious. It takes up less park space. It's a lot more. It's very similar, if not identical, to the THA thing that was presented originally, and that really sold the project to us on this site.
And they mentioned that a number of times. It's because of that reason.
Yeah, and they've seen really good-looking images of that.
We also heard a comment about symmetry and how they liked that. The Carnegie is very symmetrical. They like that the addition in this example was very symmetrical instead of like the wrap where it's more asymmetrical, moving it off to the side.
And the wrap idea, like Haley said, a lot of people really like the wrap idea. I mean, I love the wrap idea because, well, first of all, it's one story. And then I think it's good in that it just takes up a portion of the park. Depending on which side you flip it, it doesn't take up like the whole park like the long bar does. I mean, the long bar like ruins all of the park in the back. At least the wrap just kind of goes to one side or the other, and you could still maintain the functions of the park in the space that remains. And so what we are going to be looking into on the wrap is, again, I said we had contacted Kurt Lango, and we're going to go ahead and get him to flesh out his ideas about this park reinvention, the playground aspect, or how a new, how some play equipment in the front would kind of interact with the spray park, or would we have to redo the spray park a little bit, or whatever. He already has some great ideas. We just need to kind of see more so that all of us can picture what's in his head and imagine the possibilities of that. Because it's very, very difficult to say, we're going to move this and you're not going to have the swing and the slide, and it's going to be better, we promise you, and people are like, yeah, right. But the idea of moving the playground aspect over to 7th, just not going to fly. It's just too close to 6th Street. And really, when you think about line of sight and stuff with your kids, and
7th is just too busy.
7th's just too busy, and really, frankly, it's too far with what kind of activity goes on in between as well. So
I think the important thing is that he's talked about how this would become a public plaza in the front with the play area, and would make it a positive aspect to the entrance, to the new entrance.
Absolutely. And especially, we were talking about, if we put the children's department, right directly behind that, and really focused on kind of it just bleeding from one into the other, I think it could just be phenomenal, kind of energy there.
Yeah.
Really, really neat. So,
are you thinking that the spray park could have a multi-use, because most of the year it's just place to run?
I would like to hear more about that.
We were thinking that it could turn into a fountain of some sort. Maybe instead of a spray park, there's all of these little holes everywhere that, as you've seen in some places where they just shoot water out of the ground randomly. So that
I was thinking more winter time. What kids don't want to be playing in water in the winter, and
right.
Something.
Turn it into an ice rink.
Yeah.
Skateboard park.
Works better for in Montana, but not here.
Well, if you don't have these walls here, this can just turn into a plaza, and maybe.
Good. Now, on the other hand, people do sit on those walls. They
Everyone
really, really do sit on those walls. Yeah. Especially the ones at the corner
These
that
ones?
are shaded. The parents really use those a lot. So, maybe we keep part of them, take part of them, whatever. But when I say whatever, those are big deals to some people.
Oh, yeah, they are.
Just so you know. Big, big deals. So.
Yeah.
you ready for the economic side of this?
Sure.
The boring part.
Fill us in.
Here's your most economical solution in terms of staffing, and also in terms of building.
Yeah.
Anytime you extend north into the hillside, you're adding cost just to dig through the basalt.
Yep.
The further north you go, the less light you've got, the less opportunity you have to bring natural light into the building. So the reverse wrap is just buried in the hillside if it's maintained at the same elevation.
Yep.
So even though we see some windows here, that's not a very practical rendering of how that's going to end up, because there is about a 12-foot drop there. So anyway, that's a more costly exercise.
Yep.
The two-story, it's economical, but we lose net library space, or we have to spend a lot more money making it bigger than it really looks like here.
Correct.
In order to get
Well,
the
and
same
then you
net
take up
square
more
footage.
park,
That's right.
Then you
Correct.
take up that much
So
more.
I think there's an economic factor there. It seems economical in the footprint of the park, and it's true we don't have to do much else outside, but it's going to cost us both in long-term staffing and either in building more building to get the same net square footage, or we just get less.
Right.
So, and the rest of them, of course, are all more expensive, but especially the underground one.
Especially the
would
underground,
take
yeah.
us
Especially
to
the
a new
underground one.
dimension.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, so there's my 2 cents.
thank you.
Good input.
Well, option 2 compared to option 1, what would be since the commissioners all thought option 1 was so great, seems like option 2 would be better than option 1 if you're going with 2-story. For one thing, you don't have the windows looking not at a great view necessarily, which I like. And also option 2 seems to, I don't know, fit in the land a little better, looking at those drawings at least.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't know why they would have chosen option 1 when this thing is exciting.
Yeah.
I mean, that's an exciting 2-story solution compared to the other one.
Yeah, I think from an artistic and architectural and aesthetic point of view, this is very interesting. I think that for some people, the curve kind of clashes with the
With straight lines.
squareness, with
That's
the straight
probably what the
lines.
problem is,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
Right.
that's difficult for some people.
You think that's it? I wonder why hardly anybody showed any interest in it.
Dawn liked it. Dawn likes that.
Yeah, the first one just looks like an administrative office.
Yeah, right.
To me, there's no sense of community, there's no sense of creativity, it is functional.
Yeah.
And the fact that it is symmetrical and has that same period feel, one wonders, are you moving forward in the next 100 years? Are you staying back in the last 100 years? I mean, the idea is to improve on it, but still having some sort of respect for the Carnegie, and still,
Yeah.
and I don't think that means mimicking it in a bad way. And to me,
Yeah,
that's
and-
what this looks like, is a bad mimic of it.
Yeah, architecturally, they said, they could still do all kinds of things to this. They could make it look modern. They could make it look period. That, you guys could
Right,
do
right.
a lot, and hasn't really been delved into. But I hear what you're saying.
Yeah, it's just,
I guess I hadn't really considered that whole symmetry argument until now. The park isn't symmetrical. It's a square with a Carnegie plopped in the middle of it. But when you look at that picture right there, you've got a slope up on 7th that's very different, and the heavy tree canopy is on one side of the park, and the pool out here on the other side, and that whole front end is very vacant right now
Yeah,
in
it
terms
is.
of the park.
Yeah.
So, and then when you look at the Carnegie details themselves, the sides of the buildings are very different, the two sides. So there really isn't the symmetry except for the straight, full-on frontal view.
Front.
I saw it.
The
Right
rest
in
of
the
that,
middle.
there isn't symmetry at all in
Yeah.
Carnegie.
It's funny, even like some of the dimensions of the windows were changing. Like as I was building some of these models, trying to take similar dimensions from the Carnegie, I was like, wait, which one should I choose?
Oh, how funny.
But these two sides are similar, but then the back is completely different
Yeah.
from the front. So yeah, I hear what you're saying. I mean, other than like
I think
the
that
cornice.
argument isn't valid.
Yeah.
The idea of symmetry.
I'll let you
Okay.
talk to Carol Polly about
Yeah.
that.
It's typical of some of the buildings they've built in those times. The facade was the fancy showpiece, and the rest of it was just the box, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah,
Um,
that's an administrative feel to it.
Yeah.
Number two, I think also the plaza area is much more appealing and creates a nice feel to do more there.
Mhm. Like Haley said, some people like this, but they wanted it moved closer to 7th. So just kind of like
Just a little
push it
bit.
back.
Yeah, just push it a little further this
Uh-huh.
way.
Well, remember what Laura said, that was her concern, and that's, I drove around a little bit before I came, was the view from 6 and, is Jefferson the far one? So that the neighborhood, people in the
Mass.
neighborhood, that mattered to her at least. I don't know if to other people, to have that sense of a little bit of openness, and then you're coming to the park. And so if you just slid that over a little bit to the left, you would retain that somewhat more, yeah, that view there. She didn't like just the box up against the sidewalk type feel. And this is much more open.
It is interesting from this angle, isn't it, looking at that
Uh-huh.
curve?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Could you put windows in that though?
you could,
Yeah.
Oh,
sure.
yeah, I think the indication is that the
Yeah.
windows in that particular design are on the south, east, and north sides as
Yeah.
much as possible.
Right.
Right.
Because they're not going to be on the west side.
Right. The thing about the curve is, to me, if frankly, I see all the benefits of this, but if I was going to go 2-story, I probably would opt for the more boring one, just because I think it's actually a little bit more classic of lines. I mean, I would be afraid that this would look dated after a while, and that somehow because of the curve, it might never really look right with the Carnegie. Those are my own little concerns that, I don't want to go 2-story if I don't have to, but I guess if I have to go 2-story, I could live with option 1 easier.
I have a feeling that it wouldn't appear so curved.
I think the curve is a little bit less flexible over time, but I wouldn't want to. It's so loud. I wouldn't want to do it without either one without access and other entrance towards the 6th Street side of it. I think that's very important.
I think the 6th Street side entrance is really important.
I think it is.
But I'm concerned that in this setup here, that entrance is, I think it conflicts with what you want to try and use for program space, perhaps, in the area, especially if you're trying to put children's area right in the front.
Gotcha.
So I'm troubled by having staffing at that entrance and then possibly staffing back here in the old Carnegie.
Well,
For that.
we wouldn't have to have it right at the entrance.
No, but in the vicinity somehow.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping that it can be centered more kind of in the middle of the building, depending on how open it ends up being.
I see.
Yeah.
Well,
But-
and I think that's way more accomplished with the wrap.
Yes, I do too,
Oh, okay.
actually.
I'm a fan of the wrap. I mean, I'm just giving an opinion here, because
I actually would really like to kind of poll you guys on what your favorite.
not the reverse, the first wrap, the 7th. I mean, with the 6th Street.
4.1.
Yes, with the 6th Street
Okay.
entrance.
DA, what about you?
I'm a real proponent of the 4.1.
Okay, the wrap.
We only can say 1, right?
You could say 2. The city commissioner said 2. What about you, Fred?
I like that 4.1 ramp. Yeah. Initially, of course, the 2-story I like, but that I think the wrap does a better job probably with the park and the space, and makes staffing much easier.
I go 4.1, and also I go for 2.
Atta girl, Claire. Let's keep 2 alive.
Yes. Could have voted twice.
What about you, Dan?
Just from first blush, I like the curve, but you've got some decent arguments for it. My second option would be 4.2, again, because it keeps the park area up in the 6th Street side of things, up kind of in a historical area where people are used to it. Keeps it away from the 7th Street side. That's kind of my concern. I recognize that people are concerned about having this big building on 7th Street, but I think they get used to it.
Okay.
But again,
Are we talking
Is
6th
that-
or 7th?
7th Street's the busy one.
Yes,
I don't
yeah,
want
yeah.
the park down, the playground
Oh,
down in the corner
right.
of Adams and 7th.
So
Right.
any consideration about the church big on 6th Street, those are pretty big building on that side, and then big building.
Show us the wrap,
There we
the
go.
6th Street
There we
wrap,
go.
Yeah, could you go back to that 4.1?
please.
No problem.
'Cause it is just one story, remember?
Yes,
It's not
so it's not
two-story
as
here.
tall. That's true.
It's not
Which
as
is
big.
not, the church is 2-story.
Uh-huh, yeah.
Mhm.
There was, I went to the meeting last night, there was every group, I think you probably get different viewpoints, which are kind of interesting. Something about 7th Street development, that they're doing development there, and all the businesses are trying to open on 7th, was that the idea?
Well, at the community meeting, or else at the McLaughlin neighborhood meeting that happened after that, I can't quite remember, but it was that night, there was a woman who spoke very strongly about having the entrance actually on the 7th Street side. And is because she said every library she's ever been to, the entrance was on the busy street. And also the 7th Street development that is upcoming, like Mike's is going to be pulling itself out to 7th, and then Olson's thing is going to be like right there on the corner. And that creates more of that urban landscape when you bring the building out to the sidewalk. And so 7th is probably one of our kind of urban-y kind of spots, although it's very like small town kind of urban-y. But so they were she in particular was promoting that viewpoint. Very strong of like that, the entrance out near 7th.
What's to say
I
you can't have
disagree.
an entrance on 7th?
Where
I mean,
could you
you
park
could.
there?
Where would you park? I don't know.
Well-
You'd be walking from somewhere at that point.
Gosh.
And
it'd
the
be a
neighborhood
Slopes.
association is in agreement with that concept?
No.
No, I would say they
People
would
were. She was
oppose
just
her.
kind of promoting it, so it was being explained last night, is what I was recalling.
I think she'd have a real fight with the McLaughlin.
Yeah.
Having an entrance
I would
on
think-
7th is not a bad idea, it just doesn't have to be the main entrance.
Right, and so then later on in the conversation, we were talking about, well, how many entrances,
Then you
and I
have
was
3
like,
entrances. Yeah.
oh, everybody, I'd so like to avoid 3 entrances.
Right.
Could we avoid 3 entrances, please? So, let's like have our entrance on 6 rather than, because parking is obviously so much easier right there.
Correct.
Are you talking, planning on a employee-only entrance as it is?
Well, we very likely could, but I mean, we have to go way more into
That could be a
the
third
courier and
entrance,
the
but-
employee stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I was away from that.
I have no idea. I mean, the courier thing is like, who knows where that would be?
Yeah.
I mean, all these details are just not figured out yet.
No.
Maureen, for your purposes tonight, is this informal polling enough of a
Right.
indication to the commissioners about what we think, or do we need to formalize that?
Well, I originally was going to ask you guys for a vote. And that could be a good idea. We hope to go back to the commission and actually get them to select one, because we need to focus in on one. But at this point in time, because of what they've asked us to study, we're not going to be able to do that next week, because there's no way we can get this information done by next week, and that's their next meeting. After that, their next meeting is on October 1st. That is prior to our next regularly scheduled meeting. So I would like to be able, we could have a special meeting at the end of the month. We could vote tonight. If it's way out of alignment with with the direction they're going. I don't know what impact that will make. That's going to be really interesting. But I would like to be able to give them some information at the next meeting. And on 10-1, I do hope to get them to like vote on one thing or another. You know, because we need to create our schematic design, and we don't have very much time to do it. We have a timeline that we're already, you know, scrambling to stay on. And we need our architects to focus on one design, because the review process is going to be pretty long, and we need to get going on it. So,
Could I ask one more question?
yeah, absolutely.
And again, looking out for the next 100 years, and should the building need to be remodeled again?
Mhm.
And you may be able to answer this better. Between the two options of the two-story number one and then this 4.1, if one were to be able to remodel or add more square footage, wouldn't the wrap one be a simpler and much more cost-effective way to remodel by just doing a second story on parts of it or on the whole building, as opposed to breaking new ground on a two-story? You'd have to do, you see what I'm asking?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that's,
So that would
you've
be-
answered your question, yes.
So that would be a
Mhm.
plus
Yeah.
for the wrap, would be.
That's definitely a plus.
And
Mhm.
future vision that.
'Cause I mean, yeah.
Additional remodels make the wrap much more appealing from a cost-effective standpoint.
You could even add to whichever corner, like let's say you do the 4.1,
Mhm.
you could even add towards 7th Street at that point in time. You know what I
Right,
mean?
and you can
And
just
just
go up. It's-
Yeah.
You can go-
It's easy.
Yeah, you can go up, but on the short term, one of the things the wrap, actually, we talked about this, the wrap and the one-story solution provides more flexibility internally to do
Right.
short-term little, we're going
Right.
to create these kinds of spaces now, and you don't have to create any building space to make that happen.
And-
The two-story is a little harder to adapt.
Correct.
And aren't these things that the city commission takes into consideration?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, these are things that
Yes.
should push it.
Yeah,
where they can narrow it
flexibility
down.
is huge.
Okay.
And we've always wanted that as one of our goals, to leave people with as flexible a building as possible,
Right.
you know?
Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's the best thing to always build a flexible building, because you don't know down the years.
We
down the
build
road.
one every 100 years around here,
Yeah.
so,
No-brainer.
yeah.
It's like
The Carnegie's an
building
example
technical
of,
facilities too.
yeah, well, Carnegie's an example of one that's not flexible.
No, true.
Oh, it's not.
No.
It's not
So,
very flexible at
Yeah,
all.
It's not
we're
flexible,
stuck
so-
with a small library building.
Yeah.
That, I mean, it's even going to be hard to move one internal wall around without
Oh,
virtually
yes,
rebuilding
because it's a
the building.
shear wall.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me just read you Laura's, let's see here. I'm on the right email. I'm just not getting the right part
What
of it.
about the building committee? Do they not weigh in strongly, or is that not part of their role?
Oh, yes.
Building committee, isn't part of their role to weigh in?
And the RAP is the favorite of
Oh, okay.
the building committee, the staff,
Oh, I
who
wondered
didn't have a
about the
lot of
staff.
time to think about it, but the staff,
Okay.
the building committee, the library board who, first meeting. So Laura says, I'm glad to hear they are open to two options. I favor the RAP of the two favored options.
Oh, good.
That's a surprise.
I will also be interested to hear what the board members who missed the last meeting think of the options, so.
Well, I guess you've got a poll at
You
least.
got a good strong pull.
You definitely
If
got
you want a
majority.
motion, we could probably have a vote.
Why don't we do that?
Okay.
And I guess what we could say is, you know, without seeing the playground improvements or whatever, reinvention or whatever that we're hoping to get, you know, as of today, this is, you know, where we are. We favor 4.1 or whatever. The original RAP, the RAP that goes to 6th Street, right? Is what I'm hearing you
Yeah,
guys say.
correct.
4.1.
Yeah.
Somebody,
I make a motion that we inform the city commissioners that we favor the option 4.1
with,
design.
until we, yeah. Okay.
Second?
All right, there's a motion and a second, discussion?
I think that we don't need to add a lot of qualifying details. I
No,
think we're
I
really
think
just
so.
talking concept.
Concepts,
Right.
because that's all you're at as a concept stage anyway.
Yep.
That's-
Yeah, okay. Question? All's in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Great. Thank you so much.
Mhm. Thank you for your work, too.
Thanks, Haley, for presenting. It's really great to get these different angles on this.
Yeah, hopefully I didn't make you guys too dizzy.
Let's see.
That underground option is really cool. It's just too expensive.
It is really
It's-
cool.
it's probably-
Yeah. Watch out, Fred. I take over on agendas if you don't watch me.
Uh-huh, uh-huh. Okay, so we had that portion,
Building update?
where are we at? We should be November meeting date. We need to discuss the meeting date.
Yeah, so, oh darn, I didn't bring it with me, of course. The, in November, God, I didn't get my act together before Oh, I think we're good, and I'll keep these, right? Yeah. Okay, perfect, thank you. There's a date in November, the 6th of November. And let me just look this up and see if I can remember what it is. DA, you were at this meeting.
Yes,
It's a Thursday.
but
Yeah, it's
I
a
think I
Thurs-
was asleep.
It's,
I believe
6th of November.
There's something going on in the library.
I know, and I might not be able to be there. I know it's a McLaughlin Neighborhood Association meeting.
Are we talking October or November?
Why do we care about that? That's the question.
Well, because your meeting does not come until after this meeting,
Oh,
whatever
right.
it is that I'm thinking is so important.
Mhm.
And there was a need to get your consensus on something by that point in time. And I believe that, thanks, Haley, see ya. See you later.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
You know, I think it's like right before we actually submit the actual site review stuff. Now, these dates might get changed, so let's just, have this in concept in our mind today.
Okay.
But what I was thinking is that if we actually needed to have something on the 6th, would you guys be able to meet? Oh, well, we meet on the 5th. Wait a
No,
minute.
we
Yeah,
would
that's
meet
right.
on the 12th,
The
normally.
12th.
Second.
Uh-huh. Well, would we be able to squeeze in a meeting on the 5th, like at 5? I'm not sure, we couldn't have it here because that's a city commission night.
Mhm.
For me, yes.
Yes?
Yes?
Okay,
Yes.
Okay.
No, I don't have my calendar up.
Okay.
Working on it, I shut it off.
okay. Dan, would you be able to switch by a week?
Oh, yeah, I should
Okay.
be.
So since it's the
I'll
same
figure
night at the
something.
same time, it would be okay?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so, since I'm so ill-prepared, no, so like, let's not write that in stone, but I know that at least some of you could make it to a meeting on the 5th, and I think Laura probably could too,
I probably could.
and you probably could too? Okay,
Um,
great.
So now I'm looking at the schedule, so I see what you're talking about.
You have the schedule?
Yeah, the schedule calls for a city commission presentation and final approval on the 5th.
On the 5th.
So we were talking about the library board presentation and recommendation being on the 4th.
On the 4th, which is a Tuesday. That's election
Yeah.
day.
Yeah,
Yeah.
great.
So that's Tuesday.
But that's following the schematic design process,
Right.
which gets us to a real-looking building,
Yes.
at least in floor plan.
Yeah, and so that's a lot more to think about.
Big milestone.
That's a huge
Yeah.
milestone. And the other thing is since we can't go back to the city commission and ask them for a decision between the two options that they want further study on until the 1st of October, this is probably going to actually get pushed back. You know what I mean? So can we just like have a general consensus amongst us that we may have to change our meeting, but I'll stay in touch as possible?
Yeah, let's do
Okay,
that.
all right.
Okay.
Okay, that sounds.
This is for the meeting for November.
This will be for
November.
November at this point in time, yeah.
Okay.
You know, October is 5 Wednesdays.
Hmm?
October is 5 Wednesdays.
Oh, good to know.
Could do it, then you're thinking the last,
So we could do the
Wednesday.
29th. Oh, I'm sorry, I already have a hair appointment that night. Well, you don't want short hair to get too long. Just kidding. So, the 29th, yeah, if there's enough work done on something by then, but that's the thing that we always have to like play against, that you're looking at everything you need to see in order to make the right decisions that's moving forward, right?
Right.
So,
Okay.
anyway, let's just,
Let's-
all of us agree
Yeah.
that that's up in the air, and I will do my very best to keep you informed on that.
Okay.
Okay? Thank you so much for your understanding.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Are there some more important parts of the library director's report that we need to
Well, there's things
cover?
that are functioning besides the new building. Fortunately, there are other people in the library who continue to work on the day-to-day stuff. Thank God for them. And so, oh, I put these in the wrong order. Our statistics were slightly better this month than the last month. They've been down a little bit, like by about 5% for the last several months. I don't really know why. Linda suggested that maybe it's because the economy's doing better. Yeah, that might. I know that
Yeah.
when the economy does poorly, libraries really benefit from that.
Yeah.
The library to go checkouts are up a little bit, actually by 234 more. But door count is down a little. Fines and fees are flat. Summer reading, we actually were down a little from last year. We made it to 1,100, but last year we were like at 1,150. So, and Linda spent like a heck of a lot of time going to schools and going to the camps that they were having at the pool, and just didn't really seem to take, you know. But this year,
Every place that I went pulling the trailer this summer, it was packed with families with kids. There are a lot of people out and about this summer.
yeah, yeah. Oh,
And that's a sign of the economy.
It's a sign of the economy,
Yeah.
I thought, as I looked at it.
that people were
Yeah.
out doing things,
Yeah.
out
Mhm.
traveling,
Right.
yeah.
It's frustrating though that people always say, go out, give them to the school, take them to schools, you know, all that.
Yeah.
Like, this is natural, no brainer to do that, and then they
Yeah.
have not much
I think
response.
this year, you know, we'll try and do a little bit more outreach to the schools on a regular basis, and maybe that will have a bigger impact overall at the end. I don't know. And then last month, you know, we've been continuing to go to neighborhood association meetings, not with all of the options necessarily, but just to talk to people. And we've gotten really good response at each one of those. It's been very gratifying, actually. And then we did National Night Out, and then this weekend is the 5th annual Classic Car Show down on Main Street. And we have 2 staff people that are going to staff a booth, you know, a tent down there, and have some of this information out, and a little game and all, you know, all kinds of little gee-gaw things for the kids and all that kind of stuff, you know. And it's been good to be out at these events. You hear things that you don't hear when you're in the library. It's just interesting. And you talk to people that you would never see in the library, even if it's just like their kid plays the game.
Right.
You know, it's really very interesting. And that is really, what else? Anything? Any questions?
Mm-mm. I didn't see the foundation report on here tonight.
We can do that under
Or
communications.
communications, okay.
Yeah.
There we go. That's what I was ready for.
Is it red?
It's red, but
Might push the button, see if it lights up.
hi. Over my head. I've been doing library stuff all afternoon, so we did the Friends of the Library, and there's nothing to know from them much,
Doing
pretty
well.
much.
Yeah.
And then the foundation, I hope you remember that we took like a little pause from the end of June, and then this week Karen and I have started meeting again, and so we're ready to go. We're a little more excited, a little more rested, but we're waiting for timelines. So I think we're going to get a new board member, maybe a couple. So, but we like coming here, reminding you that we're all ready and excited.
Yeah, 2015 is basically the year of the fundraising, because then we'll know enough by then, hopefully, to like be able to really target in what we would be doing fundraising for.
Interesting. Karen and I sat and talked about some amounts of money that we thought that we might get, and identify some areas where the giving might be better, and we're concerned that we might get a lot of participation from the community at very low levels, buy a shelf, buy a book, buy a block, a brick, whatever. But I'm thinking that we might not get a lot of like in the $1,000 range, and so, but we're hoping to get some in the bigger ranges too. So we're trying to do some identification, but we're not ready to talk about that.
Okay.
Thanks for letting me come.
Thank you. Does anyone have any future agenda items other than what we already have on our list? Okay. If not, at 6:13,